Spider-Man of the year 2099.
That's me, ready to save the universe and looking good while doing it.
Welcome to Accelerated Visions with your host, Gil Mancha. This is my chronological discussion of the Spider-Man of the future, Spider-Man 2099. Disclaimer, I will be actively getting and collecting volumes and other collections as we go, and I will only be covering issues that I can get a physical copy of. I'm going to try to stray away from digital because I love physical media, but the Marvel Unlimited app would be a great way to keep up with the podcast. We'll of course start in the 90s with this original self-titled comic. There's a few others, some miniseries, and even video games we can discuss. And trust me, I'd love to discuss the video games down the line. Let's get back to today's issue, Spider-Man 2099, number 3, Nothing Gained. Links will be in the podcast notes. According to Marvel.com, issue 3 was released on January 1st, 1993. Let's take a look back at what else was happening that day in history.
Hey, can I call a timeout?
On this day in history, the top of the box office was Aladdin, and top music track in both the US and UK is I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston. Popular video games of the time are Yoshi, Echo the Dolphin, Super Mario Kart, and Mortal Kombat. I didn't have the NES or SNES growing up, but I did have a Sega Genesis. Echo the Dolphin is fun, and the first Mortal Kombat started my love for the series that continues to this day and will continue into Mortal Kombat 1, and yes, the naming convention is very weird. The Sega Genesis version of Mortal Kombat was the one to get since it had the infamous blood code. It's a button combination you put in to get blood effects in the game. By default, the SNES and the Genesis are the same, and you don't get blood. I think you actually get the blood recolored to gray, so it's like sweat, or it's supposed to be sweat. Whenever you put in the blood code, it's recolored to red. For kids in the 90s, even if the SNES version looks better or runs better, which I think they actually do, it doesn't matter. The one with the blood in this violent fighter is the definitive home version. That's a taste of what the world was like when Spider-Man 2099, number 3, was published.
Let's start at the beginning, one last time.
I'm reading this from the new Spider-Man 2099 Omnibus Volume 1. The comic was written by Peter David, penciled by Rick Leonardi, inker Al Williamson, colorist Noel Giddens, letterer Rick Parker, and editors Joey Cavalieri and Sarah Mossoff. The cover shows Spider-Man 2099 jumping toward the reader, and with his web foils we see concluding the origin of, then the title card of Spider-Man 2099. In the background in a yellow tone we see faces of his brother, fiancé Tyler Stone, Venture, his AI waifu Lila, and some of the public eye on bikes. Spider-Man's red and blue really pop against the yellow. By the looks of it, this will be the last issue pertaining to the events of getting his powers, and the next one will either be a one-off or be about his next challenge. An important thing to note is that Miguel's costume is not blue and red, as are the predominant colors, but again and officially said to be black. Venture keeps referring to him as a guy in black. On a quick search, the reason for this is because before digital, you couldn't do shades of black, and using gray, it just kind of looks off. Again, what becomes iconic may differ from initial intention. Peter Parker's Spider-Man is the same, and ended up being dominantly blue and red, as does Spider-Man 2099. In universe, I like the idea of a blue and red Day of the Dead costume more than a black and red. Honestly though, I think it would make him too close to the Miles Morales color scheme, so I'm glad it seems that the blue and red have stuck. Let's check out the About This Issue section on the Marvel Unlimited app for this issue. Miguel O'Hara explains how he gained his abilities to his holographic assistant Lila. Meanwhile, Miguel must ward off the growing interest of Tyler Stone, the CEO of the mysterious Alchemix Corporation. Will Stone discover the true identity of Spider-Man? So the first sentence, as vague as it is, still explains in the broadest sense what's going on. The cover mentioned that this is the conclusion of the origin, so of course we'll have some explanations. However, the rest is covered in the last couple of pages. I'm not sure why they explain it like this, but again, it's technically true, but doesn't really explain what's going on. After the break, we'll summarize the issue.
I don't understand. Why aren't Anti-Venom's powers draining his...
Because mine aren't radiation-based, if you have to know.
Didn't know, don't care.
That was a good warm-up. So when do we get a real challenge?
What it do, guys? Manjoume here, and if you like board games, especially deck building games, you should check out at @team_thunder on YouTube. There we have unboxings and games of Legendary, a Marvel deck building game, the DC deck building game, the Transformers deck building game, and many more. That's where you can find VODs for this and Water Damage, an Aquaman podcast where you can directly leave a comment and we can discuss the issues. Continuing from issue 2, Miguel, as Spider-Man, has surprised Venture with his presence. He fumbles his words, and instead of saying something to scare off Venture, he says, "Hi." Turns out, though, the Thorites are on the scene and proclaim Venture to be the enemy of the Harbinger of Thor, or Spider-Man here, and as such, are their enemy as well. They look like a bunch of Thor cosplayers, and I'm not sure how far off that actually is. Facing a non-powered human having a group of 4 more enthusiastic Thor enjoyers would be quite formidable. Against a superpowered cyborg, not so much. And Spider-Man knows it. Get back, you idiots! You don't know what you're dealing with. Back to Miguel telling the story to Lila, he explains how he knew what Venture was capable of. He did know that if the Thorites tried to slug it out with Venture, nothing would be gained. That's pretty good, actually, kind of working the title of the issue into the comic. He confirmed that she's recording all of what he's telling her, and to show it, she's wearing glasses and is writing on a notepad. Of course, this is all just her being extra because she's a hologram. Miguel tells her he was trying to throw Venture off his tracks, but the Thorites came in and caused this commotion, further complicating the situation. Back to the flashback or story. At this point, we have at least 5 Thorites, which Venture has no trouble in subduing. He tells him he can keep this juggling act going all day, son, unless it bores me. Then people start dying, as one unlucky Thorite is smacked by his staff and goes, "Yeah!" Venture asks Spider-Man if he wants their deaths on his conscience. Maybe you can live with it, but they can't. Goaded into making a move, Spider-Man finally leaves off his perch and jumps at Venture, left talon drawn, saying, "What I want is to be left alone." Arg! Venture counters easily, using his rod to shock Spider-Man's right arm. "You've got guts, son. I'll give you that. But you've got no style, no experience, and no chance." No chance? That's what you got? He tells Spider-Man that Alchemex wants his black-clad butt, and he will bring him in. It'll only be tough if he makes it tough. His words start getting to Spider-Man, feeling hopeless. The rod had numbed the nerves in his right arm, rendering them useless for the time being. He thinks maybe Alchemex will cut him a break. They can work something out, talk it out. Talking is his strong suit. His left arm is really itchy though. Well, Spider-Man. A Thorite comes up wielding what I hope is a real hammer and not a toy. "In the name of Thor, god of thunder, Venture swings his rod around, knocking him to the ground. "Shut up, kid. I wasn't talking to you. In fact, he drives the rod down beyond what we can see. You're such a waste of protoplasm, I don't think anyone will benefit from talking to you." Venture did this to prove a point that he can and will kill. I don't kid, and I don't scare. But I don't think you can say the same. I can smell the fear from here, and you're smart to be scared. "Boulder's dead! He's dead! The first sign of the end is upon us." Here's where we get our quote of the issue.
Son of a...
Computer, this laboratory has been compromised. Initiate self-destruct sequence. 10 seconds.
10 seconds? That's barely enough time to come up with a clever explosion-related quip.
Ooh, that must really burn you up. So long, Spider-Man. It's been a blast.
Oh, she's good.
Venture says, "Hey, kill one of you or all of you. Makes no difference to me. I'm on overtime. How many more die will depend entirely on the man in black." Turn the page and Spider-Man's had it. He makes a fist with his working arm and leaps at Venture. Able to raise both arms somehow. Well, now this is just plain stupid, son. He swings, but Spider-Man ducks. "You don't have anything to prove to me. In fact, you can't. Except that you aren't as smart as I thought you would." "Shut up!" Spider-Man catches him with a left hook, then proceeds to jump and start running away. Venture doesn't take too kindly to that. Not the way a real man would do business. He shoots at Spider-Man, who's just able to dodge. Mind racing, he's telling himself to ignore Venture's talking. It's meant to distract him. He tells himself to retrace his steps because doubling up on them will wipe them out. Yeah, I'm not really sure how that works, but he's a scientist, so okay. The only problem is that he literally has to cut through his own apartment since he'd been there. At his apartment, we see his brother Gabriel sulking about how Miguel had treated him, his own brother. Turn the page and Spider-Man leaps over him, out of the way, with Venture soon after. It can't be, was that? Cut to the riddle mean. Does he know? Venture loses his visual on Spider-Man, so he starts using his infrared scan to find him. He thinks he's running scared and trying to hide, but he's doing the backtrack thing that we discussed earlier. Still absolutely scared though. Making it to his own apartment, he feels like an idiot wearing a costume and hopes nobody recognizes him. An explosion behind him. Then again, looking like an idiot is the least of his problems. Taking lives is bad enough, but now you're forcing me to use plasma bolts on innocent machinery just to get to you, son. When's it gonna end? Spider-Man rips off a door to get far enough ahead of Venture to talk to Lila. He interrupts her welcome message and tells her to point out the window he had initially gone through, and tells her to repeat after me. There was a horrible man in black, and he went through there. Okay, Lila? Good girl. Next we see Venture approaching Lila, who points the way she was told and says, there was a horrible man in black, and he went through there. He retorts, I can see that. Thanks. Okay, Lila? Good girl. She did repeat exactly what he told her after all. Cut to the front of Miguel's apartment elevator. Gabe is looking on. Holy shock. Gotta get up to Miguel's place. Fast. Outside, Spider-Man has jumped out the window, the numbness having subsided, so he has both arms again. But now both of his forearms are itching a lot. He's wondering why and thinks something is gonna happen. What the heck's going on? Am I gonna sprout more arms or something? Using his jet boots, Venture follows. Think of Star-Lord's boots. Can't escape, son. For someone who's so positive I can't escape, you sure keep mentioning it a lot. Venture tells him he keeps saying it to keep himself awake during his escape attempts. It's more polite than yawning. Evading a blast, Spider-Man clings to a sign that says, say no to plugs, and has the most self-aware thought we've had so far. I wonder if I get on people's nerves this much when I mouth off as Miguel. I'm running out of warning shots, patience, son. My goal is to bring you back in one piece, but if it's several pieces, then it's your choice. Venture loses sight of him again. Huh? Where'd he go? Right here! From the top right of the page, we have a full page of Spider-Man punching Venture. Ugh. Venture praises the tactic. Nice move, son. Skittered back around the other side and bushwhacked me. Good thinking. Now, if you'd done some good thinking before wrecking an Alchemist's lab, he finally gets Spider-Man with his rod. This time in the chest. Arg! As he's dazed, falling through the sky, Venture throws a yellow device that creates mustard-colored wraps that entrap Spider-Man. Let me go! No can do, son. For what it's worth, you gave me the longest workout I've had in a while. Rejoice in the little victories, Spider-Man, but the big victory is all mine. Let's take a moment to go back to Gabe. Lila greets him, telling him he's gained weight and asks if he's changed his dietary habits. Ignoring that, Lila, what's going on? There's a horrible man in black, and he went through there. Okay, Lila? Good girl. Pointing out the window. Lila, what happened? She goes on to, in detail, tell him that there's property damage and now it'll be repaired shortly. Very robotic. After the meaningless info dump, Lila, where's Meg? Not at home. When did you last see him? 5.3 minutes ago. Lila, what was he wearing? No time for that, so we'll get a pseudo to be continued here for that storyline. Cut to Alchemix and Tyler Stone praising Venture over a video call. He's bound Spider-Man with a molecularly dense body wrap, which Stone deems is strong enough to hold him even if he's superpowered. He ruminates that he has questions for him, and in some instances, not so many questions, but confirmations. What I'm particularly intrigued by is his ability to scale walls. Any clues on how he does it? Venture tells him no. He'd move too fast for him to get a good look. Suction, he guesses? You'll have your answers soon enough. Finally awake, Spider-Man extends his talons and uses them to sever the wraps, freeing himself. Maybe sooner than you think. Here's your answer. I've got talons on my fingers and toes. They're handy for climbing and shredding things like bonds. I'm not sure why he info-dumped here, but then he used his talons to target one of Venture's boots. And jet mechanisms. He gets behind Venture and puts him into a chokehold. What's the matter, Venture? Ran out of smart remarks? Nope, just patience. Venture grabs Spider-Man's arm, beginning to overpower him. Arrgh! You've blown it, Spider-Man. You've made me consider you a threat. Be easier to examine those talons if I rip it off your arms. I'm not sure if it's a defense mechanism or he's just put on so much pressure, but web shoots from the top of Spider-Man's grabbed wrist and shoots Venture in the eyes. What in... Spider-Man thinks this out. That came right out of my forearms when he put pressure on them. That's what the itching was. I've grown spinnerets in my own arms, generating some sort of web. Naturally. Any minute now, I'll start getting hungry for flies. The two starts crashing down, Venture hitting the ground, and Spider-Man landing on a car. Venture's furious and rips off the webbed-up goggles and eyesights, revealing two red eyes. All right, boy. I see you over there. "You are dead, Spider-Man. Dead." Spider-Man notices his aim is off, but means he could be hurting other people. Thinking quick, he grabs one of the hover cars, the maglev cars. The magnets generate current through the guided coils, creating like polarity. If I can create a like polarity on Venture, it'll repel him to the next county. Despite the driver's protests, he grabs the car. Surprising even himself, Spider-Man picks up the car and swings it at Venture, but he's able to resist. But the gun is repelled away. Venture laughs it off. "Nice trick, Spider-Man. That'll buy you maybe another 5 seconds of life. Use it wisely, run away again, it's what you do best." Setting down the car and leaping over it, not this time. He leaps at Venture, but this time dodges. Ready to die? No, ready to live. Spider-Man catches Venture's head, who's not sure what Spider-Man did to his leg, and Spider-Man tells him he sliced it open with the talons on his feet. "I'm full of surprises, Venture. Sometimes, just sometimes, I even surprise myself." "Nice slip, boy. But you're just a jerk in a costume. Me, I'm Venture. I eat guys like you for breakfast." Spider-Man realizes the gun and Venture's back have opposite polarities, so that means turn the page, then choke on this, cowboy. Oof. The gun magnetizes Venture with great force. Meanwhile, Spider-Man grabs his rod and shoves it into his exposed leg, causing an explosion. Yeah! Back to the action narration. Miguel explains how when the crowd got there, he left. He spent days crisscrossing the city in and out of costume. He did that to throw them off his track by making several nonsensical tracks. He starts going over what's going on with him: fangs, talons, accelerated vision, web spinners all over his arms, which he says beats shooting web out my butt, I suppose. His fiancée, who's terrified of him since the last interaction they had, he'd swung at her while strung out on a drug his drink had been laced with. His brother thinks he's a weapon of Alchemax, and he didn't like him working for them as a scientist, let alone superpowered being. Now the public eye is out to get him, he asks. "With all that going for me, how could things possibly get worse?" There's a knock on the door. "Mike, this is Tyler Stone. I think we should talk about Spider-Man." Next, things get worse. After the break, we'll go over some thoughts and feelings about the issue.
Our reality is coming apart at the seams.
And now I see why. The two gateways created a link between our times. Together, across the expanse of time.
We must defeat our enemies and defy death itself.
No, not this time!
When I first saw the Thors, I was hoping they'd be more helpful, but if nothing else, it's the thing that got Miguel to act heroically, albeit after one of them died. I'm not sure if Thor still exists in the Marvel Universe or if there's a Thor 2099, but I hope the Thor End of Days gimmick leads to something substantial, and they aren't just those crazy guys. Granted, I'm fine with them starting out that way, but I think it should lead to an issue or moment where it turns out they're right, even if 99% wrong. Just like a little right is enough. Like, it isn't Thor coming back at the end of days, it's just he happens to be back. I love the moment where Miguel had self-awareness of his own snarkiness, and hopefully he'll tone it down in the future. We've got some cool action and a showcase for his powers. Breaking out of the binds that super strength alone couldn't break through was a pretty nice feat. Gabe is smart here when he asks her what Miguel was wearing, as he was wearing a Day of the Dead costume. That'll obviously connect the dots between this superpowered person and his brother. We don't get the resolution to that, but I'm sure we'll get it in issue 4. There's no way we'll have to wait a long time for the conclusion to that storyline. In prediction, I'd say Tyler Stone is questioning Miguel about Spider-Man, not because he thinks they're the same person, but because he had worked on the program so closely while employed at Alchemax. Maybe he'll use Miguel's drug addiction as leverage to get this info. I mean, he doesn't know Miguel isn't addicted to Rapture anymore. Then, as part of the story of things get worse, maybe his brother is threatening to call public eye on him unless he tells him everything. Then when he does, he'll want Miguel to do some rebellious things that he maybe doesn't want to do, and causes more trouble while Venture wants a run back on their fight. What do you think? Did you read the comic? Let's continue the discussion on social media and the YouTube VOD. You can find me at ManjoumeThunder on Twitter and at Team_Thunder on YouTube. If you're looking for another podcast to listen to and want to learn more about Aquaman, King of the Seven Seas, check out Water Damage, an Aquaman podcast on Spotify and anywhere you can find podcasts. Manjoume out.
I've had it with this jabbering freak.